I've been interested in transitioning more to helping out my good clients online. Dan has spent a tremendous amount of time getting the website set up so that if you click on this navy suit, let's say, and you like it on the model, that you can see 5 other swatches of the same weight, same mill, and then so in that respect, are you wearing a corduroy?
Flannel.
Yeah, so it's like if I say to you like, oh, I love that brown flannel, you're like, well, look, Alex, I can show you. Let's go on the website, click this suit, and we can see these various weights. And so, I mean, obviously, you want to give clients imagery, fabrics, as much of that smell test that they can get without actually touching it and feeling it.
I mean, that's been our business the whole time. I mean, that's why it's sort of ironic because, and I think it's probably going to be a lesson for all of us in the business and many industries where, you know, e-commerce and like we were built digital first for convenience, right? It so happens to be that convenience and safety now during this pandemic situation are kind of aligned, right? It's like the businesses that were built to save you time are now the ones that are thriving. Look at things like Amazon or FaceTime or, things that I think that's the way the world is moving anyway. And it's just interesting that, you know, we were kind of like foreseeing that in the future, and this is just forcing our hand to say, yeah, it has to be the way you do business now. You know, I think it could be that businesses pivot for the next few months, and then customers kind of get used to that convenience, and it kind of pushes things faster into that way. You know, it's like there's certain things you can't do online, right? You can't play basketball with your buddies online. You can't spend quality time with your wife online. But anything you can do online, I think people are going to have to do it now and want to continue to do it so that you can save more time to do those other things, you know?
Mm.
So I think everyone's going through that right now. It's like, how can we do what we do, but do it digitally, you know? So it's good timing for us so long as, factories continue to operate. That's the kind of wild card, right?
Yeah, extremely wild. Ironically enough, we're working with China, and yet they're situated perfectly now. I mean, our delivery times are right back to normal.
Wow.
So Wuhan hit in the midst of Chinese New Year's, and coming out of that, they were delayed probably, let's say, 2 weeks until they got up and running completely. So we lost 2 weeks, but since then they're as magical as they've ever been.
So your
You know.
production chain is not the problem. Now it's like, how do you sell these guys and do fittings, basically?
Yeah, yeah, and I think the biggest concern, and this is super off the record, is just like with how much disposable income is there, and how fretful are people of having to tap into that, thinking
Yeah.
like, you know, I asked Dan earlier when I came in this morning. I was like, okay, I'm giving you 6 seconds to answer this. So okay, so I'm going to say that in the last, let's say, 10 years, our economy has been pretty stable. It's not thriving, but it's been pretty stable for the average Joe like me. And I said, how long do you think it'll take for us to come out of this? And he said, probably like a year, but then in terms of the debt, we're talking 3 or 4 more years. So it's like that big unknown is like, well, maybe I shouldn't actually be spending any of my savings on, or whatever it is, any of my money on a suit, an extra 2 suits, an extra 3 suits. And that's really where I think that you and I, our goal is to have a client that spends 5, 10, $15,000 a year with us, not just like, let's get that one suit on them, and then we're not making that much money on the first suit.
Right.
For the muslin try on, for all of that,
Yeah.
all the work that goes into evaluating the fit.
That's the
Yes.
wild card, you know? It's like we are not affected. We can sell, we can make, we can fit. We're set up for digital, but it's like how much are people going to need and want to buy clothing right now, you
Yeah.
know? And how do you inspire them that how can now be a good time to buy, right? Like, can we do a better job of meeting with customers one on one, even if it's digital, right? Going through their closets, advising them on what they need for when it's over. You know, I mean, it's going to blow over eventually. Can we convince people to spend this downtime working on self improvement, right? Now's a great time to be reading books, working on creative projects, working on your wardrobe for us, for our sake. You know, it's like, how do you, what's the best way to inspire that message? Or is it straight up, hey, like, if you like these small businesses, now's the time to support them?
Sure. No, I think there's truth in all of that. It's more of a D all of the above.
Yeah,
And I would. I mean, I've always been a believer that, like, with my clients, it's important for me to kind of look each man in the eye and say to them, look, my business relies on referrals. Who in your circle would do well to connect with me? And when I look a man in the eye and say that, I'm not asking them really for a favor, because my expectation level is that if someone introduces me to one of their people, that eventually that person's going to come back to them and say, "Yo, thank you so much for introducing me to Alex."
yeah,
And
you're providing a service.
they're coming out looking good, but I'm also looking good as well. But I think that at this point, it's super important to be able to kind of say, like, hey, not only is my business dependent upon referrals, but it's also, it's lean right now. And I think, you bring up that interesting point about our clients that are, the clients that we have, rather than not expecting that clients are going to come knocking down at our doors. It's just not going to happen. Though the streets are dead right now on West Broadway.
Yeah, what's it like down there? Is anybody out there?
Nobody's outside, man. You know,
Nobody.
I talked to Martin next door at the hotel. He said there's 6 people that are checked into the Soho Grand right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're running a hotel, bar, restaurant, man, you got to pay those rents. That's the governor just announced that rents won't be due though, right? Is that true for you guys?
That I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know the federal government, the state, they've talked about trying to offer, you know, packages of some sort to kind of alleviate whatever it is, whether it's loans, rents. Um,
Nobody's sure right now.
yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, how are people out in Greenwich? Just kind of business as usual in terms of, like.
I mean, it's hard to say. We're kind of on lockdown. We're in the house. We're working from home, staying in the house, and going out for like little nature walks here and there, and staying far from everyone. It's hard to say where people's heads are at. To me, it's a great time to be creating content. Like I think we can grow our followings at the very least. People are sitting at home. They need entertainment. They need interaction. It's like social isolation, yes, but not. You can still talk to each other. You can still FaceTime. Things like Netflix and stuff are probably seeing a huge boom. So my plan is to build the brand and do things like this, share content, while people are buying or not. There's still an opportunity to build that following, and then when the confidence comes back and people need to wear things again, you're in their world. How long can you do that for without selling consistently? That's sort of the wild card, right?
Yeah.
It's how long
I
does
think
it last?
one of the benefits that you and I have in terms of our approaches that are pretty similar in terms of preaching core pieces, developing a smart, comprehensive closet and wardrobe, is just that I think at this point, guys are going to have to become a lot more prudent about the choices that they make, and they'll have the
Right.
time, as you said, to kind of reflect as to what is in their closet, what's necessary, what do I need,
Yeah.
how do I map things out so that I'm not wasting shit ton of money. It's like we've been to Costco. My wife went to Costco today. We've been there 3 times in the last like 5 days. And there's so many. We have a limited amount of space, and you're realizing like, wow, do we really need whatever this can of beans that have been in there for 9 months?
Yeah, I
It's
mean, I hope that I'm obviously an optimist, right? Any sort of entrepreneur, creative person is usually optimistic, and my hope is that it's kind of an eye opener for people to slow down a little, perhaps, and focus on what's important, right? So like how that relates to fashion and your wardrobe is like you're in this are you in a cycle of buying a bunch of shit you don't need or you wear once or super trendy, and um, I think there will be people thinking about cutting down their impact, and focusing on things that are hopefully a little better made and buying less, buying better, and simplifying their life a bit. Um, I mean, if anything, this is teaching us is like, what do I actually need? Like, what's actually important, Um, obviously, fashion's tough because if you're staying in the house, it's like, are you wearing, you know, full canvas jacket? Does that matter as much anymore? Um, to me, it's this will end and it'll blow over, and it's a good time to kind of rethink um, how much you're using and how much you're consuming and what are the things you're supporting when you make purchases. And that's the message I hope we can get across. There's a lot of small businesses that do things really well, and supporting them means that good things continue on. And there's a lot of big businesses that are hawking you some bullshit that you don't want or need after a little while. But again, there's so many unknowns. It's like it's hard to think in the longer term right now.
mm,
So for us, it's get creative, build your content, build your base, and try to pitch your kind of core value, and hope that people believe it enough and are optimistic enough that it's going to end soon, and you can make some sales and some business through it. But
yeah. I wonder how the transition will be as far as dressing a little bit more seriously coming out of this, because I would imagine that once this blows over, people are going to come out kind of as if it's the day after this big nuclear storm, and then there's going to you're going to have to figure out, well, how am I going to get mine, and as such, like, how is it important for me to kind of go back to dressing in a way that kind of expresses that I'm about my business, that I'm not about being fashionable, that I'm not about trying to have the trendiest this or that. It's just like, well, maybe I should be wearing a suit a little bit more than I have in the past. Maybe I shouldn't focus on going to work and just being casual. Every day is not a casual day. Like, there's as I see it, there's not going to be a casual day in my calendar in the next like 2 years.
right,
It's going to take time for this to blow over, and I want people to recognize, like, I'm about my business, I'm about my family, I'm about
yeah,
doing things right, doing things smart.
yeah.
I'd love to be able to have fun and play around and not be concerned about the day-to-day things, but I am.
Yeah, I mean, every day is important, right? It's. I do wonder about that, like the history, right? Like, it does seem like after a big event, a world war or something, um, historically, and I'm not an expert here, but there seems to be a conservatism afterwards, and a certain elevated sense of importance and perhaps elegance. You look at sort of the Roaring Twenties after the war. You look at sort of after the Second World War, it was very um, uniform dressing, and we're kind of all in it together, playing by the rules type of thing. So there's certainly going to be a social impact that fashion is a reflection of society in a lot of ways, right? So will there be this sense of like, I want to be professional. I want to be seen as taking the day as important. I don't want to buy a bunch of bullshit. I want to support the things that matter. Um, Again, those are optimistic, heavily unresearched ideas, but um, I do wonder how it's going to impact people's mentality in that way, you know?
Yeah, I found that like 5 years ago, there was this transition towards kind of melding the street and couture, the casual and the formal. And it was kind of fun and, to be able to, let's just say, not wear a tie or wear a pair of nice sneakers with a suit. Um, if you had asked me if I had hoped that, you know, by this time, by 2019, 2020, that people would be dressed as casually as they are, I probably would say, that I'm not really in on that. It's probably, I feel like we've gone a little too far in terms of becoming super casual and
Yeah.
forgetting about like core, basic, kind of formal things that I saw my father wear
Well, it's
50
the
years.
sense of occasion, right? Like there is no sense of occasion at all anymore. It's like you wear the same thing to the gym, to work, to bed. I think people do miss that. I was foreseeing a comeback of, you see big streetwear guys like even like Virgil Abloh. He's saying streetwear's it's too saturated. It's gonna die. There's only so many graphic tees you can make before people don't want that anymore. So I was long term hoping and optimistic that things would get a little more elegant, or at least sense of occasion would come back. I wonder if this thing speeds that up, maybe. Obviously, in the short term, there's so many unknowns that it's hard to say anything, but we will come out of this, and how will it affect people's life and decision making, and purchasing? Um, you got to think that the casualness has peaked or close to peaked.
Yeah, no question. No question. I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back. I think the people aren't going to have the money to be playful and experimental. Excuse me, but yeah, I think that's a wrap.
Let's hope so.
Which bodes well for us, obviously, just because this is our paradigm of wearing a jacket, wearing a nice pair of trousers.
Yeah.
Complimenting it in a certain way, whether it's with a tie, without a tie.
Well, when you I look at a guy like you, right, and I see a lot of myself in you, obviously, and it's like you've been wearing the same shit the whole time I've known you. I've probably known you for what 10, like 8 years now,
mm-hmm.
And there's just a sense of like solidarity to that, Like when I see you like this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Alex. Like that's Alex doing his thing, and like what I'm wearing today, I've been wearing for years, and I don't feel the need to go buy more stuff, or in our case, make more stuff. And that's just like, to me, the beauty of it is not only the elegance and the timelessness, but it's like, that's you, right? That's your long-term kind of like style, and it doesn't really go in or out. Like we're a little bit trendy, like we'll wear it in a trendy way. Like you'll wear a suit with sneakers or with a t-shirt or something, but it's the same suit you're wearing with the tie,
Right.
And there is that sense of like, he's not over consuming. He just knows how to buy the right stuff and how to use it. Like I often say trends should be styling, not design or pieces. It should be like you have these core pieces, and the way you wear them can be on trend. But having those kind of core pieces is what sets your whole foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're good at sharing that message. I wonder if this situation will help us get that through a little more, once things kind of come back to normal.
Well, I've been committed to trying to preach, and I think we had that conversation with Angel during the conference that Gladson had put on a couple of months ago. Just the idea of not necessarily preaching to the choir, which was for us people that are in the industry, but being able to talk to the people out there, the young people. I mean, I had a guy that popped in the shop a few weeks ago, and he well-dressed young kid, probably 30, and we got to talking, and then he's like, "Oh my God, you're Alex from Alexander Nash, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I used to watch all your videos, and I'd see you on YouTube and Vimeo, and It's like I grew up where I was in Virginia. We just didn't have a lot of different options. I'd never seen people wear things the way you were able to wear it, and it was kind of refreshing. It brought back, you know, it kind of warmed my heart, and it was flattering for him to say the things he did. Um, but at the end of the day, like, I think we've had these conversations for years ourselves. It's like being able to get out there and to preach, to talk, to kind of share the good news that we've discovered. Like, you know, for me, it was discovered many decades ago, and for you, you know, a couple decades ago. But it's just, you know, we love to share that. That's part of what we are, part of who we, you know, how we resonate on a day-to-day basis. So.
And maybe that's what we need to do, right? Like these what we're talking about, these social changes. It takes people to talk about that stuff and continuously, and to drive that message home. So, you know, if you and I are in this video, maybe we should be saying it is a time to be elegant, and it is a time to take things seriously, and it is a time to wear a shirt and tie because people are scared, and that makes people feel a sense of structure and a connection to history. And that's the most interesting thing about the influencer world, is it's how influential are these people, right? Like that guy who came into your shop, he was enormously influenced by you. Um, and that is going to affect and change the way he thinks about dressing or buying or whatever related, you know? So um, as I'm getting like older in the content game, and kind of as we're getting back into publishing more with this new launch that's coming up, I'm thinking a lot about like my message and like what is kind of finding my voice again. And I think we need to be more steadfast in explaining that these things are real, you know? Like when I walk into a room decked out, it's like there's an impact for me and for everyone. Like when you go to a wedding and everyone's dressed up, it's like a more memorable event because everyone is elevated, you know? And if we continue to share that, it's more likely to impact people, you know? So that's kind of my goal, is to create as many of these videos, people's perspectives. I mean, right now I think people want to hear from people generally, like how's it going for you? Because we're all in this together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But coming out of that, like what is the takeaway, you know?
Yeah, I've expressed to you before about creating content to try to give more life, communal life to this movement that you and I are part of. You know, whether we like it or not, it's who we are, it's how we operate, and I think that something has sprung up in the last decade in terms of guys being interested in dressing up, transitioning from that idea of being like the metrosexual. That's kind of a dirty word at this point. It is what it is. Guys dress up. It's a normal thing. You watch athletes when they're coming to the games. You see events and what have you. Guys like to dress up, but trying to kind of create forums where people can talk about that in the same way that when I was young, back in the early '80s, I'd listen to sports radio, whether it was Art Russ on WABC. I'd listen to it in the late nights, him on the radio, and then I'd listen to Mike Francesa and Chris Russo. And this is 35 years, 33, 34 years ago, I'd listen to these guys on WFAN. And that was a rare thing. You know, this is kind of before ESPN had blown up, but there's always been a lot of interest in sports, just creating those forums where people can kind of share and almost worship to some extent, but people that have that interest in following whatever the box scores, following the games, following the conversations, the changes.
And that's only good for the game, right? Like as far as it applies to us, it's like there's this community of people with this shared interest, and we should and aim to create an online place for us to meet and talk about it, right? Especially now where you can't go into the shop and have the whiskey and talk shit and, you know, have the whole barbershop experience. Like, how do we create that online? You know, like even if it's a small percentage of people that care enough to participate, it's still worth cultivating, right? It's like, look at what ESPN has done for look at what ESPN has done for the game. You know, like as that broadcast got bigger, so did the fanmanship. You know.
Yeah, and I'm no more interested now in sports than I was before ESPN. I was just always, I wish that I was a gambler because I at least then I'd have an excuse to be so into the major sports that I am. Um, Basketball, baseball, football. I love it.
Yeah.
I've always loved watching that. That's why I sought out things like Art Russ on WABC in 1982, and but for us to kind of create platforms or forums, I think it gives other people that perhaps don't have that same knowledge of it or that haven't experienced the nectar that we have, giving them an opportunity so that they say, "Hey, man, this looks kind of cool. This looks kind of interesting."
Right. Right.
And I don't think that the hype around sports, it could certainly get to a certain level of hype where it's just preposterous. If it's the Stephen A. Smiths, I don't think that's really about talking about the art. It's just more about creating controversy and hype and what have you. But I think that there's certainly room when it comes to being a gentleman and it comes to menswear where we can be of service to other people. If for no other reason than just kind of facilitate that conversation.
Right. So talk to me about that. Like, talk to me about your style, right? You've been in the game a long time, many years, several decades. What's the takeaway? What are your favorite suits of all time?
Well, most of my association with dressing came from watching my father at a super young age. I mean, my dad worked. In 1970, I was 6, and I can remember even earlier than that him dressing up, in that madman kind of paradigm, commuting into New York City on a daily basis.
What was he doing for work?
He worked. He was an executive for a textile manufacturer, Deering Milliken.
Whoa.
On 6th Avenue and 41st, and he worked for them for many years. I mean, he finished up at Yale, and then he went to work for Standard Oil, and then he started probably, I guess, in '65 working for Milliken, and he worked for them for 20 some odd years. But he was uber preppy. As I said, had gone to Yale, went to.
He was Ivy style in the prime of it.
Yeah, went to Italy for a year, fought in the war, came back, finished up at Yale, and had grown up in Plainfield, New Jersey, and just had a lot of confidence in terms of using colors and patterns and textures and what have you. But it was natural that he would dress up, and he would always wear a button-down shirt sitting down at the table, whether it was a Saturday afternoon. He'd come home from work and sit with us at dinner at 6:30 every night, but in his suit and his tie, that he'd get off the train and sit down with the family and eat with us. But he always dressed up. So, and for me, in 4th and 5th grade, I had to wear. 6th grade, I had to wear a blazer and a navy blazer and gray slacks to school every day.
Prep school boy.
Yeah, private school, prep school.
Yeah,
always having to dress up, and that was a great thing. It engendered a love of dressing up, and I guess I was very, very. I got turned on to shopping in vintage thrift stores by my mom in the late 70s, like 77. I can remember this is around like Saturday Night Fever. Bee Gees and everything like that, and kind of I was 13, growing considerably. My mom took me to a vintage shop, and suddenly I was exposed to millions of colors and patterns, and the price was right. And growing up in a place like Westport, these hand-me-downs were all really nice.
Yeah, those are good thrift stores back then.
Very good thrift stores. Things from like Mitchell's and.
And you had a hard time fitting stuff because you were growing like a weed. You're a tall guy.
Yeah, tall and super skinny, super tall, 6'4", and when I graduated high school, I was $180, soaking wet. So, but that presented all of these kind of interesting forays into discovering clothes from previous decades. You go into a vintage shop in 1977 and you're seeing things from the 60s, from the 50s, from the 40s, and that continues today. You can find, if you go into a thrift shop today, you'll see things from the aughts and the 90s, the 80s,
Right.
and from past. So you're just kind of getting this tactile learning of all of these decades.
I mean, that's a common story. Like, I find the most stylish people have that story, right? It was my mom, my dad, very stylish. I grew up around it. Is it so? Is it possible? Like, is it possible for someone to start from scratch and to become that comfortable in their style? Like, if I'm a new customer of yours, I've never worn anything other than fleece and jeans, Levi's, whatever. Um, what are the lessons that you teach these guys to understand it a little more?
I'm always preaching the KISS acronym to keep it simple, stupid. But the beauty is that it's not about the details of like colors or patterns. It's like, think about this. The most respected silhouette that you and I could have in our closet is a tuxedo. It's black and white. It's two
Mm-hmm.
colors, right?
Yeah, and
It's
minimal.
simple. It's clean. It's minimal. It's sleek. It's stuff like so. It's truly about fit. If a garment fits you really nicely, I think any guy, you and I have dealt with hundreds of guys that have come in and don't have any idea as to how a garment should fit. And once we've put them in that garment, how many times have they come back to you and said, "Oh my God, Dan,
Right.
I so many compliments." I've had guys say to me like, "I've never once had a person comment on what I was wearing or how I wore it," and suddenly I'm getting compliments hand over fist.
And that begins their journey into loving it, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like when you work out and someone says like, "Oh, you look like you lost some weight. You look great," or some girl
Then
says,
you're in the gym the next day, like, ah.
No, but it's simple. I've always said like there's three things in my life that I've never regretted, and I've never once in my life eaten a healthy meal and then woken up the next day and said like, "Damn, why did I choose to eat that for dinner?" And I've never once in my life gone to the gym or worked out, gone for a long run or something, and then said like, "Man, that was a dumb move yesterday." And I've never dressed up. I've never worn a nice outfit and then said like, you know what? I shouldn't have dressed up last night. It's all gravy. It's absolutely gravy. It truly is. And I think that's reason enough for most people to want to just kind of have fun with that. It's
Yeah,
not.
it's so true. I mean, it's transformative, you know. Like, I try to remind people that, yeah, I'm just a guy from a farm that didn't know anything about any of this. But when I put it on and put it on well and go all out, it's like a fucking superpower. You know, it's like you step on that train, like you're dressed right now, you step on the train, people are like, damn, what's up with that guy? You know, and you feel that and they feel that, and it gives you that like extra oomph, you know.
Mm.
And it's hard to share that message without seeming like you're bragging about something or you're like up your own ass, but it's just a real feeling, um, that can in some ways change your life, or change the way you feel about yourself or other people think about you, you know. And it's those messages that I hope to share, you know.
We've talked in the past. The idea is to if you exude an aura of kind of comfort and acceptance, and you don't have your head up your ass. It's like, I watch Steph Curry play basketball, and I say to myself like, damn, I want to go shoot some hoops, or dribble. The little kids will watch Steph and be like, I want that.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately, those kids are fucking up the whole game. They're 5 on 5. They're jacking from half court, thinking they're Steph
yeah,
Curry. But no, I
yeah,
know exactly what you're saying, though. Yeah.
yeah. It's like there's a joy and a passion where hopefully someone walks into a room like I think the magic of how you and I operate, which it's not indigenous to us, but it's what works, and that is that we're dressed up, we walk into a room, and it's very nice, but it doesn't define us.
Right.
We're not using it as a barrier to say like, look at look at this shit right here.
Yeah.
I got it going on.
I think if you're doing it like that, it's actually less effective, right? Like,
Oh, it's not effective. I don't think it's effective at all. I think it turns people off. It's
right,
like
it's actually the opposite. Yeah.
it's the beautiful woman that walks into the room and she's got a great figure and she's dressed impeccably and her hair and makeup are all perfect and she's just kind of like her nose is way up in the air. She's not paying
Right.
attention
Or she's
to anybody.
looking in the mirror every 2 seconds or whatever.
Yeah, imagine the impact of that woman who walks in like that, but you discover like, oh my God, she's just so humble.
Right.
Like, can you kind of embody both of those qualities of being
Right.
incredibly gifted when it comes to one thing, but also being very kind of warm and generous?
Yeah.
You know, like my stock answer a lot of times when I walk into a place and or if somebody says something to me out in the streets, like, "Oh my God, I love your style." I'm like, "Geez, you're not supposed to embarrass me in public like that. Like, you make me blush." You know, like, and the reality there is that you're kind of disarming a person because it's not easy to give compliments to somebody because you tell a woman like she looks beautiful and then she could easily just ignore you, right? You can tell
Right.
someone like, "Oh man, you look dope," and then they could easily just fucking brush you off. But if you're kind of taking that compliment as if like, "Wow, thank you so much for saying that. That's really nice," um, as opposed to like, "Oh man, you look great." Like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It just takes time for people too. Like, because we wear this stuff because it's just second nature. So you're not thinking about like, oh, I'm fucking killing it right now. Like everyone should be looking at me. It's like not even about that. So that's why I gravitated towards you. I think is that you're this fly dude, but it was so easy to talk to you and just like, hey man, hey, what's up, man? And we wouldn't talk about fashion for the first hour or two. It was life, family, basketball, whatever.
sure.
And then that made me want to ask about the clothing, you know, because I respected and liked you, right? Um,
I always say if we're talking about our wardrobe or clothes, 2-3 minutes after I meet somebody, then the conversation is not going in the direction that I want it. Like
right.
dressing up is a great conversation starter. It's an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that flower in your lapel. That looks great. Oh, thanks so much. It's like now suddenly we have a conversation started.
Right.
Let's not talk about fashion or style for more than a few minutes. Let's
Right.
talk about things that are important, like family and
Right.
whatever it happens to be, family, faith, challenges, fears,
Yeah.
those types of things. And yeah, I think it's what makes us special, you and I. In terms of that level of humility, look, we take our craft extremely seriously. I don't think either of us take ourselves so seriously to an extent where it makes people kind of feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, fashion has been that for so long, right? It's been so untouchable, and your designer's at the top, and now with social, it's like, yeah, you can be, hey, I'm a regular guy, like I have to get dressed up, and I love clothes, but it's not what I live for or what I talk about all day, or it's just part of who I am, you know?
yeah, no, it's a fun part, and I think if you and I are doing our jobs, in kind of a more macro level, then we do create content. We do create situations where we can kind of inspire other people, and that's we're not doing it. So it's like I wish to God that this is sarcastic, but I wish like yeah we'd have this conversation like let's think of ways that we can make more money. Let's pretend that we're humble and we want to proselytize and share and showcase how much fun we're having. But it's the God's honest truth.
Right, right. It's yeah. I mean, if we wanted to make money, we probably would have did something else.
Yeah,
All right. So the clothes don't make the man. The man makes the clothes, which is what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, for sure. I wear my clothes and they don't wear me, and the things that I'm attached to hopefully are my family and my friends and serving others and doing good, doing the right thing.
How
That
how
really,
how's the fam doing, man? What are you guys doing in this situation? Obviously,
well,
your boy's not at school, right?
he was on spring break and that's been extended for 2.5 weeks. And one of his good friends whose parents live in France, he's with us.
Hmm.
And Bella's home from school, and He's not going back now until Alexander's not going to go back till mid-April at best. Loomis, Chafee, they've and they're in that same kind of prep school paradigm as he is, but they've canceled classes for the rest of the year. Or school, they're doing stuff online. It's tough, man. You know, I got two more horses to feed, 3 meals a day.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to feel for the people that like were working hourly jobs or like kids are at home. Like, you just wonder what's going to happen with so many people. You know, I heard 50% of people are living check to check in America. You know,
That's me. You're looking at one.
yeah, and if you can't put in those hours or make that like, what are you going to do? You know,
But I mean, I honestly don't know, man. I was asking my friend half jokingly about joining the military. I don't think I can enlist at 56, but
I mean, you look good. Just
thanks, man.
tell them you're 42.
Yeah, no, I just turned 38. So, uh, but you know, I don't know. It's a serious situation. I honestly, um,
I mean, you got to think there's some type of bailouts that have to happen, right? Like
yeah, I hope so.
strange times, man. Strange times.
Yeah,
Can't even watch hoops.
I lost my boy today,
What boy?
Brady.
What happened? Did he retire?
No, he just couldn't work it out with Belichick, and
So he's gonna play for another team?
yeah, I think he's gonna go to San Diego or L.A. Chargers. I,
Really?
I I can't see him playing in Tampa,
Huh.
but
That guy is not gonna give it up, man. He's pretty old himself.
he's gonna be 43 in a few months in August,
Wow. That's amazing, man.
isn't it?
You better hope they got a good offensive line, tell you that.
You know what's funny is like when I saw you when you came into the shop like a month ago, we were butting heads about LeBron, but he's
Dude,
just
don't bring up LeBron.
no. I got to bring up LeBron. LeBron's just been he was crushing it. Like,
Dude,
oh
he's
my
amazing.
seriously. You saw your boy George Carl came out the other day saying that he's worried about Peds and the NBA. I got to think these guys are taking any and everything like any human,
What do you mean?
like like hormones and
Like these
steroids.
guys are juicing and working out?
I think so, man.
You think so?
I think so.
I think they're more likely to be smoking weed and chilling out.
Yeah, but I think LeBron is like this guy's. I mean, how does? Come on, dude. It's like he runs around like he's 22 years old. Like I might look like I'm 40 something, but this guy plays like he's 23.
Yeah, I mean he's not that old though. He's 35, right?
He's
Like
got a lot of miles
he's
on
got a lot
those.
of miles, but a lot of care too. Like he spends $1 million plus on his body. He's in the fucking chamber every night. He's got the trainer stretching him every morning. He's doing the right workouts. I mean, that's why I love LeBron, right? He takes his body and his job so seriously, and his fame and influence so seriously too. Like talk about a role model for a family guy too, right? Um, but to me, he's an example of like if you had the best care in the world, this is how you could maintain. And he hasn't gotten hurt, right? Luckily, but I think he can play for a while. You know.
Yeah, I don't know at what point you kind of just lose it, but I mean, obviously Iverson lost it seemingly overnight, and
Yeah, but LeBron can sit in the post. He can bring the ball up, dish it to the wing, go down to the post, and play 3 years without really running full speed. You know, he's just got the body for that. Iverson, if he slows down, he's in trouble. You know, he's not even 6 foot really in real life. Like banged up body, speed demon. Those are the guys that don't. Like I look at Zion and I'm like, man, that guy. If he loses his jumping ability, which is inevitable with the weight he's carrying, it's like, is he that good of a player to like distribute, handle the ball, be a leader, shoot the three. Like you got to look at a guy's body and his game and say like how long can he do that for? You know?
I feel like what he does insanely well.
Who's that? Zion?
Zion, yeah. I
Yeah,
just feel like
he's a monster.
There's so much more. I watch him against LeBron, and I'm like, Zion is just dominating the game in his way.
Yeah.
But LeBron dominates the game in all ways.
Yeah,
He
however he
dominates
wants. Like LeBron will play
any
different depending on the game.
like whatever LeBron, from 1 to 5, LeBron could just play any of those positions.
Yeah.
And like if LeBron wanted to be Zion and just be a fucking beast and a strong beast, he could do that. Like,
Yeah.
but I mean, Zion's not playing any. It wasn't playing any defense. The offense was kind of stale. Didn't necessarily move that well with him, and
Yeah.
wasn't playing any defense whatsoever.
I mean, he's certainly not like playing the 1 to 5 on defense. He's not guarding like a quick point guard, you know?
Yeah.
He hasn't proven any of that ability, you know? I mean, he's so young, but I just worry about the amount of physicality that he requires, the athleticism he requires to be effective, and how long you can do that for, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I don't understand guys that are like, I don't understand for the life of me, like the Cousins of the world. Like, I just don't get it. Like, how do you not lose 30, 40 pounds? You look at like a Draymond, like, see how much more effective he was when he was skinnier. And
yeah, you got to be light. Even LeBron's got a lot lighter too, you know? Like, it's just for your body, for your joints, you know? I miss hoops, dude. Miss hoops. So what are you guys doing in there today?
no, then I'm gonna send some pictures to some clients, some fabrics. I had some guys that had reached out to me. So what are you thinking about doing? I mean, what do you want to do for content?
Well, this is one. I recorded this.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna chop it up. I'll edit the best pieces of it or whatever.
Cool.
Right now, I'm just experimenting, calling people in the biz, chatting with them, recording it. You could probably chop it up for social.
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks for doing it, man.
Yeah, of course, man. My pleasure.
Stay safe out there. You're in the hot zone.
Where's number 2, man?
She's out here. Baby's down for a nap right now, so she's probably taking a nap too.
Second, number 2 kid.
What's that?
Where's the next kid, man? Baby number 2.
Not ready yet, man. Not ready. We're definitely talking about it. We definitely are gonna do that.
Nice.
How many years between your kids?
10.
Oh, 10.
No, 8.
Yeah.
Alexander's 18. Bella just turned 10.
Oh, so you gave it a nice break.
Yeah. I was 40 for Alexander, and then 48 for Bella. So that's a little. That's why I'm running 50, 55 miles a week. I keep young, man.
I mean, you play young though, man. I play old. People always
How's
think.
the weight loss going, man? I know you're gonna cut this out.